Before I get into the actual video itself, I wanted to preface it by saying that this video will contain major and minor spoilers for Luigi's Mansion 3 in its entirety. If you do not want to be spoiled, click off the video now. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and start talking about this incredible game that is Luigi's Mansion 3. I don't think Luigi's Mansion really needs an explanation, but just in case you're watching this video and somehow don't know what it is, it's a series of games where you run around a mansion, or in this case, a hotel resort, as Luigi, and suck up ghosts and get money. And that's the game. And it's incredible. Especially Luigi's Mansion 3. I absolutely love this game. It's the best. And I will get into why, but first, we need to take care of something, and that something is Luigi. The previous two Luigi's Mansion games really only showed off the fact that Luigi is a huge scaredy cat, and yeah, that's a core aspect of his personality, but Luigi's Mansion 3 builds upon that scaredy cat motif. Yes, he's a coward, and he will probably always be a coward, and that's fine, because Luigi is still precious. But they also show off a bunch of other aspects of Luigi that we haven't seen before. For example, he's a complete and total goofball. Dark Moon had a few moments that showed that Luigi just messed around a lot, but Luigi's Mansion 3 takes it to a whole nother level, to the point where there were so many moments in the game where I was just laughing or just gushing over how great of a character Luigi was. Like, just take a look at these clips and you will understand what I mean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, bravo. Oh, sorry. It's me. Luigi. Oh, oh yeah. Groovy. Oh, wow.
The cutscenes aren't even the only part of the game that show off how much of a goofball Luigi is. There are so many examples of in the game itself that just show off Luigi as a complete goof. One of my favorite examples is on the 14th floor. Before the boss fight, you have to get past a bunch of dancing ghosts, and the entire time, instead of Luigi taking up his standard cowardly pose, he's just bopping to the beat, and it's so great. Like, look at him go! He's just dancing away without a care in the world. Yeah, there's a bunch of ghosts in front of him. He doesn't care. The music's great, and so he's gonna bop. On top of being a scaredy cat and a goofball, Luigi's Mansion 3 also shows off that Luigi is incredibly kind-hearted. The best example of this is on the 8th floor, where Luigi comes face to face with the boss ghost, Morty, who is a movie director, because the floor is Paranormal Productions, so obviously he's gonna direct movies. But when Luigi meets Morty, he's in complete and utter distress, because he's lost his precious megaphone, and without it, he feels like he's a completely garbage director. And Luigi has the opportunity to just take him out right there. He could easily do it. But instead, out of the kindness of his heart, he decides to go and help Morty find his megaphone. And then he gets to be in a kaiju movie, which is awesome. And then after the movie is made, Morty takes the film, gives Luigi the elevator button, and goes into the production room to work on his movie. At this point, Luigi is presented with a choice. You could go into the production room and just take out Morty right then and there and be done with it. Or, you could leave him alone and let him work on his movie. And then when you come back later, he's actually done with the movie. The fact that Luigi has the option to completely leave a boss ghost alone shows that he's willing to be kind to something that he's completely terrified of, even though getting rid of Morty now would help him feel less terrified. Also, he's just so loving towards Polterpup throughout the entire game. It warms my heart every single time Luigi interacts with Polterpup. Especially this interaction at the very beginning of the game.
Happy. Aw, Polterpup.
That is such a precious interaction, and I love it so much. The best way to describe Luigi in Luigi's Mansion 3 is wholesome and genuine, to the point where his emotions and his expressions and his reactions, they all feel so real. Like, that's how a person like Luigi would react in that situation. And it almost feels like I could just be walking down the street one day and see Luigi and be like, yeah, he is a real person, huh? That makes sense. That's how it feels in Luigi's Mansion 3. He feels so grounded and wholesome and real, and I love it. None of his expressions or reactions feel forced in any way, and I honestly just love Luigi even more for that. I already liked him as a character beforehand, but now it's like,
Good job.
he's amazing. Now that the topic of Luigi is out of the way, I want to talk about the aesthetics of Luigi's Mansion 3, because hot damn, this game looks good. I mean, seriously, I never thought Luigi's Mansion 3 would be one of the best looking games on the Switch, hands down. The environments are just incredibly well detailed, the colors used are vibrant, but not so much so they're overpowering, and the lighting works really well, to the point where the colors are either muted or enhanced based on the lighting in a realistic way, which is something I never thought I'd actually see in a Nintendo game outside of something like Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey. Actually, I want to take a moment to stop and talk about the individual floors themselves, because every single area of the Last Resort is distinct and unique in its own right. Considering there are 17 of them, that's quite an accomplishment. In the early game, the floors are pretty tame with locations like the Grand Lobby, the Parking Garage, and the RIP Suites, but as Luigi works his way up the Last Resort, the floors begin to become more exotic and varied, with areas such as Castle McFrights, the Tomb Suites, and the Dance Hall. You will be completely shocked when you realize that all of these floors are contained within a hotel resort, but if you pay close attention to the little details, you'll realize that these areas aren't actually as insane as they seem. For example, looking at all the suite floors, excluding the Master Suite, you'll notice that their purpose is to house resort guests. The only difference between them is the type of experience offered and the theme of the floor. The RIP suites are your standard hotel fare. The suites themselves come fully furnished with a king bed, a large closet, a nightstand, a desk, a table and some chairs, and a bathroom, and some of them even have private balconies. On the rest of the floor, there's a laundry chute down at the end of the hall, there's a laundry room and a small lobby-esque area, and also a spider-infested corridor. Wait, what? The garden suites are somewhat similar to the RIP suites, except it's much larger and completely overgrown with plants. The rooms have the same amenities as the RIP suites, like the bed, the closet, and the bathroom, but on a completely larger scale. The bedrooms and bathrooms are twice as large, and each individual room is themed around a certain type of plant. For example, one of the bedrooms is themed around tall grasses, and one of the bathrooms is watermelon themed. The actual layout of the floor is a large open main room, with the rooms branching off the main area. The rooms are on separate levels and can be accessed by a multi-tiered balcony system connected by stairs. The main attraction of the floor is a giant flower blooming in the middle of the main room. Unlike the other suite floors, the Tomb Suites seem to only have one suite, so it's more than likely a private suite than a public suite, like the rest of the floors. The overall theme of the floor is Egyptian, and the suite itself is located inside of a pyramid within a large room filled with copious amounts of sand. Inside the suite itself, the only amenities are a closet, a sofa, and some throw pillows on a carpet, but in the middle of the room there's a sarcophagus, and there's a trapdoor that leads down to the lower levels of the pyramid, which are full of deadly traps. Calling the pyramid room a suite, though, is quite a stretch, considering there isn't even a bathroom, so it's more of an attraction than a suite. Like the Tomb Suites, the Twisted Suites seem to be similar, where they're private suites instead of public. The floor itself is themed around magic, illusions, and carnivals, and the layout of the floor is really weird. Unlike most cases where each suite is separate from the others, the suites here are seemingly jumbled up and mixed in with the other rooms on the floor. In fact, the very first room you enter from the elevator lobby is a bedroom, which means you have to go through somebody else's room to get to yours if your room is on that floor. Each bedroom has a connecting bathroom, though one of the bedrooms isn't actually able to be lived in due to the entire room being upside down, and the bedrooms themselves are fully furnished, making them actual suites. Like the garden suites, each room has a distinct theme, such as a bedroom themed around blades with a knife throwing board and a box meant to be sawn in half, and a bathroom with a large Houdini-style tank of water in the middle. The other notable thing on the floor is a large central room with a stage, tables, and large minibar. This room is more than likely used for special performances for the guests and for entertaining other guests invited to the suites. Like I mentioned, these are probably private suites meant for a single party of people, considering you need to go through a bedroom to get to the rest of the floor, which is a massive invasion of privacy. As for the rest of the floors of the Last Resort, I'll be going over them in order of appearance, and I'll just make mentions of the ones that I've already talked about. The Grand Lobby is the main lobby of the Last Resort. It features a wide open entrance area and some furniture off to the sides. The purpose of this room obviously is where you come to get checked in, where you drop off your bags, and etc, etc. The basement contains the parking garage and the laundry room, and the parking garage later becomes the site of EGAD's lab. The west half of the mezzanine features a ballroom, a storage room, and a dressing room for the hotel staff. It's where they stash their disguises that they use in the beginning of the game. Then there's the RIP suites, which I've already talked about. The hotel shops is the Last Resort's shopping mall. The mall is split between two floors connected by escalators. It includes a barbershop, clothing store, jewelry store, gift shop, and coffee bar, along with the office of the security guard and a lost and found. The eastern half of the mezzanine features an entertainment room with a billiards table and dartboard, as well as a small fancy restaurant with a fully stocked kitchen. The restaurant is one of the Last Resort's 2 restaurants. The Great Stage is a large theater auditorium with a large stage. It features a large theater hallway, concession stand, and the theater itself. It appears that the main things shown in the theater are musical performances, but it is possible that movies are occasionally shown as well due to the existence of a movie theater-style concession stand. Castle McFrights is a medieval-themed floor. It features an entrance with a drawbridge and a moat, a long winding dungeon, and a sizable arena. The dungeon features a number of traps, from pressure plate activated floor spikes, to swinging axe blades, to spike pits, to automatic crossbow traps. The dungeon area is most likely an attraction for the resort guests, while the arena serves as an entertainment place similarly to the Great Stage. The Garden Suites I've already talked about. Paranormal Productions is a production studio found in the Last Resort. It features a reception area and a backstage area with 5 separate studios. The studios are the Horror Set, Castle Set, Fire Set, Micro Set, and City Set. There is a huge plethora of references to other media on this floor, with some of the more notable examples being references to Poltergeist, The Ring, E.T., and even Godzilla. Like Castle McFrights, this floor is likely an attraction where guests are able to make their own movies. This location also lends credence to the idea that the Great Stage is also used to show movies, as the movies shown could be the ones made in Paranormal Productions. The Unnatural History Museum is a fairly small museum housed within the Last Resort. Most, if not all, of the exhibits are about dinosaur fossils, with the main attraction of the floor being a collection of multiple dinosaur skeletons located at the back of the museum. The floor is an attraction floor where guests would learn about dinosaurs in prehistory. The Boiler Works is the lowest floor of the Last Resort. It serves as the water pumping facility as well as the sewage collection and disposal facility. There isn't really anything of note here besides the overabundance of pipes and water. It's also possible that this serves as the power plant for the Last Resort, as the name Boiler Works implies the resort may run on a steam-based power system by boiling water. The Tomb Suites and the Twisted Suites I've both already talked about. The Spectral Catch is a pirate-themed restaurant, the second of the 2 restaurants in the Last Resort. The first part of the floor is a generic lobby-type room, where there's a reception desk and the door that leads to the much more notable giant seaside cave partially filled with water and sporting several waterfalls. The cave contains tables and chairs and a fairly large bar towards the back. An exit at the back of the cave leads to the beach area with more tables and chairs, along with a massive body of water. It's by far the most remarkable aspect of this floor, as it is within the largest room in the game, apparently to be roughly the size of half a football field, with no visible bottom, meaning there are likely thousands of gallons of water present, and it is located on the 12th floor of the Last Resort. On top of this, the only discernible purpose of this massive body of water is for the use of a single pirate ship. Don't get me wrong, the Maka Ocean looks really, really cool, but I can't help but think about how it affects the overall structure of the Last Resort, as well as the strain this amount of water puts on the plumbing. The fitness center is, well, the Last Resort's fitness center. It features a reception area, a locker room, a cardio room with treadmills and cycling machines, a yoga room, a shower room, and an indoor pool. The dance hall is a disco-themed dance club. It features a long hallway which contains a ticket register, small gift shop, coat room, and a stairway leading to the actual club. The club itself features a large elevated dance floor in the center of the room, with tables and booths off to the side. There's also a large sound system behind the dance floor, along with the turntable setup. Obviously, this floor serves as entertainment for the guests. The Master Suite is the highest floor of the hotel, and serves as the home of the Last Resort's owner, Helen Gravely. It's quite large and extravagant, with the most notable thing about it being the overabundance of King Boo stuff. There's King Boo statues, King Boo tapestries, King Boo paintings, King Boo vases?
Gee, I wonder if this is the final area.
The floor itself contains a living room area with a rock garden, a library, a drawing room, a master bedroom, a master bathroom, and an observation room from which the entire Last Resort can be monitored. The fact that all the floors of the Last Resort have an actual purpose rather than just being put there for the sake of distinct level variety is something that is not only incredibly creative, but something I greatly appreciate. I know it's not something that most people will care about if they even pay attention to it, but it's a little bit of detail that helps the Last Resort feel like a single defined location rather than a series of disconnected levels. As much as I like the overall design of the floors and the way they look, I do have an issue in the level design itself. I'm not claiming that it's bad, because it really isn't. The problem is that the floors are just too short. To illustrate the problem, you can divide the floors into two types, exploration and boss. Starting off with the boss floors, these floors don't offer much else other than a boss fight. The layout of the floor gives you a straight shot to the boss room with little to no resistance, to the point where they only have between 2 and 5 rooms. Because of their small layouts, these floors usually only take around 10 to 15 minutes at most to fully explore. The boss floors are the Great Stage, the Unnatural History Museum, the Spectral Catch, and the Dance Hall. Exploration floors make up most of the game's other areas. These floors offer a lot to see and do, and require the player to explore the level quite a bit in order to get to the boss. They usually have anywhere between 5 and 15 rooms, and their layouts can vary quite a lot. However, these floors are still quite small and only take around half an hour to fully explore. The exploration floors are the Mezzanine, the RIP Suites, the Hotel Shops, Castle McFrights, the Garden Suites, Paranormal Productions, Boiler Works, the Tomb Suites, the Twisted Suites, the Fitness Center, and the Master Suite. You might have noticed that I left out the Grand Lobby and the basement, and that's because they don't really fit well into either of the categories. The Grand Lobby consists of only one room and doesn't actually have a boss fight, and the basement is an exploration floor on the first visit, but a boss floor on the second visit. While having 17 different floors to explore make their individually short length a bit more bearable, both their small size and the overall linearity of the game make it to where you have no real reason to backtrack outside of a few certain exceptions, because as long as you're diligent enough, you can find everything in most areas on the first go. The same way that I talked about each of the individual floors of the Last Resort, I want to talk about each of the individual boss ghosts of the Last Resort. I won't go super in-depth like I did with some of the floors, but I still do want to talk about each of them because they are incredibly varied and unique. Helen Gravely, like I mentioned earlier, is the owner of the Last Resort. She's got big hair and an even bigger obsession with King Boo. I also love the fact that her name is Helen. It just feels like it's one step away from Karen, and that fits her so well. Stuart is technically the first ghost that Luigi encounters, but since he's wearing a mask at the time, I'm not counting that as a first encounter. He's the lead bellhop and receptionist of the Last Resort, and to be honest, he's little more than a larger goob with a bigger health pole, but he can throw a mean suitcase. Jambrea is a maid ghost found at the RIP suites. There's nothing really notable about her other than the fact that her first instinct when caught trying to steal a briefcase is to eat said briefcase. Wow guys, look, it's Paul Blart. I'm sure I'm the first person to make that joke. In all seriousness, I actually like Cruller a lot. His introductory cutscene defines his character so well, and he's honestly one of the most expressive ghosts in the entire game. Chef Soufflé is the head chef of the Mezzanine restaurant, and he's got a weird affinity for fish. Despite how many different types of food is in the kitchen, he only uses fish when he cooks and when he fights. And to top it all off, there's also a giant anglerfish in the freezer, and I don't even want to know what he's gonna do with that thing. Amadeus Wolfgeist is a pianist playing at the Great Stage. He comes off as being very snobby, but his musical talent is undeniable. Also, if you've ever played Super Mario 64, get ready for some PTSD from Big Boo's haunt because, oh boy, that's a piano. King McFrights is, well, the king of Castle McFrights. He's Scottish, clearly, because, you know, the red beard, and he also apparently enjoys jousting. There's not much else to say about him other than the fact that he rides on possessed horse armor rather than just a ghost horse, which is interesting. Dr. Potter is the caretaker and resident botanist of the Garden Suites. He seems to have a fondness for all types of plants, though his personal favorite seems to be a sentient variety of a Venus flytrap style plant, which he can grow at will and is completely loyal to him. Dr. Potter is much more aggressive than the rest of the boss ghosts, as he's the only one that goes out of his way to try and kill Luigi, rather than just waiting for his lackeys to finish the job. I know I've already talked about Morty, but it just feels so wrong not to mention him here, as he's the most unique boss ghost in the entire game. He's the only ghost at the last resort that doesn't care about killing Luigi. All he cares about is making his movie, and he wants Luigi to be the star. Also, just the fact that Morty is pretty much a one-man production team is incredibly impressive. The only thing that we know for sure is Morty doesn't do his own acting. But other than that, he's quite the talented movie maker. Oh, Polterkitty, just like your owner, you're a bit of a bitch. I mean, you just prevent progress twice, and you're just really annoying to fight. Ugg is a caveman found in the Unnatural History Museum. There's nothing to say about his personality other than the fact that he's dumb and clumsy. What is interesting is the fact that Ugg possessed an entire T-Rex skeleton and was able to sustain his possession for quite a while despite taking massive amounts of damage. Clem is a mechanic that works down in the Boiler Works and is the personification of redneck in ghost form. Like, seriously, he's got the trucker hat, blue overalls, a single buck tooth, stubble on his chin, and a redneck voice. Whenever he's not napping in one of the various spots he has set up with beds or sofas, he's messing with the various pipes and machines found in the Boiler Works. If Luigi's Mansion 3 wasn't rated E, I guarantee that the Boiler Works would be overflowing with beer cans and beer bottles. Serpsy is the pharaoh of the Tomb Suites, and comes off as being oddly flirtatious towards Luigi. Besides this, she's able to manipulate sand to an insane extent, creating giant snakes, snake turrets, giant hands, and even her own head just out of sand. Nikki, Lindsay, and Ginny are three magician sisters that reside in the Twisted Suites. They're quite immature, and they like to show off and perform at any given opportunity. Not that I blame them, because unlike most of the boss ghosts we've seen up to this point, the sisters can perform actual magic, not just possession, turning invisible, or passing through objects. Most of their magic manipulates the space around them. They can manipulate personal gravity, teleport objects into their hats, rearrange the rooms on the floor without physically moving them, and even access an entire pocket dimension. But, like I said, the sisters are pretty immature, and they mostly use these powers to either show off or pull pranks. Captain Fishhook is a ghost pirate shark found in the waters of the Spectral Catch. Aside from Polterpup and Polterkitty, Captain Fishhook is the only animal ghost in the game. As his name suggests, he's the captain of the pirate ship at the Spectral Catch, and he can possess his ship in more ways than one. Why a shark is the captain of a pirate ship is beyond me, but it's still cool. Johnny Deepin is a buff swimmer found in the pool at the fitness center, and is the ghostly personification of an absolute Chad. Due to his build and attire, it's safe to say that he plays water polo, and the other thing that gives this away are the balls he throws, which are the kind used in water polo. He can also spit water with surprising force and accuracy, but to be honest, just looking at this guy makes me want to punch him in the face. DJ Phantasmagloria is the Afro-sporting disc jockey of the dance hall. Phantasmagloria is a talented DJ, and she operates quite a big setup. Despite its appearance, her large afro is actually a wig, and her real hair is short and black. She has her own personal Goob dance troupe, which she can summon at a moment's notice, and she has some minor pyrokinetic abilities as well. King Boo will be skipped over, because I have nothing to say about him. I mean, come on, he's been in 2 games before this one. There's really nothing new to discuss, he's the exact same. Despite how really well designed the boss ghosts are in Luigi's Mansion 3, the standard ghosts are not. They're just not. They're pretty much carbon copies of the ghosts from Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and they're pretty underwhelming. There are 5 main ghost types, 2 of which have miniature variations. Goobs are the most common ghost you'll encounter. These blue ghosts will often appear dressed up in costumes, and may occasionally brandish objects to increase their effectiveness, such as using them as weapons or using them as shields. They always attack in group, and have a base 100 HP, and also have a mini-goob variation. They're the same as the greenies from Dark Moon. Hammers are the beefiest standard ghosts you'll encounter in Luigi's Mansion 3. These red ghosts attack by either slamming their heads on the ground and creating a shockwave, or just rushing Luigi with a football tackle. After being stunned, they can only be sucked up from the back. They have a base 200 HP and have a mini hammer variation. They're similar to the slammers from Dark Moon, down to the coloration and larger than average health pool. Oozers are very tricky and annoying standard ghosts. These yellow ghosts will usually hide in objects and throw food at Luigi, which does damage and can leave hazards on the ground, mainly banana peels. Interacting with the object they are hiding in, or waiting for them to leave on their own, is the only way to make them vulnerable to attack. If there isn't anything to hide in, the Oozer may just stand out in the open visibly and occasionally throw food. They have a base 100 HP and are the same as the hiders from Dark Moon, aside from the color. Slinkers are extremely annoying standard ghosts. Unlike the other ghosts, these purple ghosts don't tend to attack Luigi directly. Instead, they prefer to sneak up on Luigi invisibly and scare him, which briefly stuns Luigi. They can also grab him, which does damage if not broken out of quickly enough. They'll remain invisible until they can either attack or are found by Luigi. They have a base 120 HP and are the same as the sneakers from Dark Moon. Trappers are very different from the rest of the standard ghosts. These orange ghosts function more like traps than enemies and are very rare. They'll hide in front of a door, and when Luigi attempts to open the door, they'll use their 2 tongues to grab onto and damage Luigi. Luigi then must use Gooigi to stun and capture the ghost. They have 0 HP and are somewhat comparable to creepers from Dark Moon, as they both function more like environmental hazards as opposed to actual ghosts. The standard ghosts stand in stark contrast to the boss ghosts, as while the boss ghosts are incredible, the standard ghosts are mediocre at best. Not only are they all recycled from Dark Moon, with the exception of the Trapper and the mini-ghosts, but there aren't really any new ideas for them presented throughout the entire game. Dark Moon at least presented power-up versions of the standard ghosts towards the end of the game, and had 2 more unique ghosts with the Gobbler and the Poltergeist, but with Luigi's Mansion 3, we're stuck with the same ghosts throughout the game's entirety, and that really affects the combat. Speaking of the combat, let's talk about the gameplay. I'm happy to say that I felt right at home once I got my hands on the Poltergeist for the first time, as the game controls almost exactly like it did back in Dark Moon, with all the abilities from that game returning. The 2 most basic abilities of the Poltergeist, blowing and sucking, are pretty self-explanatory, so I don't feel like I need to go into them any further. The strobe bulb is a special flashlight bulb, which you can charge by holding down the A button. When you release the button, a flash of light will be produced, the size of which is dependent on how long you charge the strobe bulb. It can be used to activate special green sensors, kill small enemies like rats and spiders, and stun ghosts in order to suck them up. The burst is the first new ability that you get in the game, as it comes standard with the Poltergeist. By pressing down both the triggers, Luigi will be launched into the air with a gust of wind. This gust can be used to push back enemies and also avoid shockwaves on the ground. The other returning ability from Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, the Dark Light, is an interesting and versatile ability. It's able to reveal hidden objects by shining the Dark Light on it, and then afterwards sucking up the spirit orbs that are released. It can also be used to free objects trapped in paintings such as gold, gems, and even people, and it can be used to reveal invisible ghosts and the paths that they leave behind. What's different about the Dark Light device in this game is that, unlike in the first game, you can hold it down indefinitely, rather than only being able to hold it down for a certain amount of time. The Suction Shot is the next new ability acquired in Luigi's Mansion 3. In using it, you fire a plunger at an object which has a rope attached to the end of it. If the plunger sticks onto the object, Luigi can then suck up the rope and then slam the object behind him, clearing obstacles out of his path and breaking the objects for any cash that's inside. A good rule of thumb is that if an object has a circle on it, then it will react to the Suction Shot. That being said, just because an object doesn't have a circle doesn't mean a plunger can't be attached. The next ability to be acquired in Luigi's Mansion is the use of Gooigi. Gooigi is essentially a GUI clone of Luigi. Both characters control the same and have the same poltergeist abilities, but Gooigi differs from Luigi in a number of ways. While Luigi has 99 health, Gooigi only has 25, but Gooigi's health will rapidly regenerate after taking damage. Gooigi can pass through things like grates, fences, gates, and pretty much anything else that isn't a solid wall or floor, and can travel through pipes. Gooigi is also resistant to sharp objects like arrows and spikes, but to balance these traits out, Gooigi has a huge weakness to water, as coming into contact with any whatsoever will instantly dissolve him. The last ability in the game isn't acquired until pretty late in the game, and it's the Super Suction. The Super Suction allows you to immensely beef up the power of your poltergeist whenever you connect it to a special outlet, allowing you to suck up an entire room's worth of stuff, including the very walls and floorboards. Also, as a side note, it increases the amount of time you have to slam ghosts using your poltergeist. The combat of Luigi's Mansion 3 is similar to the combat of Dark Moon, but does a lot to improve upon the ideas Dark Moon put in place. It has the same formula of stun the ghost, suck on it, charge a meter, and then do a thing, but instead of charging the meter allowing you to take away a huge chunk of the ghost's health, in Luigi's Mansion 3, charging the meter and then pressing the A button allows you to slam the ghost on the ground. And then you can keep slamming the ghost as long as the meter has not run out. You can use this slam mechanic to slam the ghost into other ghosts, not only decreasing their health, but also putting them into a stun similar to that of if you were to flash them with a strobe bulb. This is both a good and a bad thing, as being able to take out huge hordes of ghosts at one time means that the game can throw a lot more ghosts at you, but it also trivializes the combat because it makes it a lot easier to suck up ghosts. There's also a little bit of skill involved with the slam mechanic, as if you just spam the button once the meter is full, you'll only be able to get 4 slams out, but if you time your slams perfectly, you can actually get 5. And whenever you upgrade your slam ability with the Super Suction, you're only able to get 5 out, but if you're good, you can get your amount of slams up to 7. The one issue I have with the gameplay is how it handles aiming. Since the 3DS only had the circle pad, Dark Moon's aiming was done through movement. In Luigi's Mansion 3, there is now an additional joystick that can be used to control aiming. This sounds like a good thing, but the problem is how this aiming is implemented. The most obvious way to implement aiming would have been to have Luigi face the direction that the joystick is pointed in, and then use gyro controls to aim up and down, like in Dark Moon. Instead, pointing the stick left rotates Luigi counterclockwise, and pointing right rotates clockwise, with pointing up and down making Luigi look up and down. This wouldn't be as bad if the default controls didn't have Luigi become locked in a way he's facing whenever he uses flashlight abilities or the poltergeist. You can change the settings to allow Luigi to freely turn with the movement stick at all times, but this brings up another issue with aiming: auto-aiming. This was present in Dark Moon, but when you needed to fire an object, a reticle would appear and auto-aim onto the specific target once the reticle was close enough. But in Luigi's Mansion 3, this auto-locking also applies to the poltergeist. Whenever you're trying to suck up or blow on anything, it's quite common for the game to lock you onto a nearby object that you didn't want to interact with. This degree of auto-aim wasn't present in Dark Moon, and I don't know why they added it into the game. Despite these issues, the rest of the game controls really well. Before I end this video, I'd like to go over some things that I haven't had the chance to talk about yet. For example, the fact that Luigi's Mansion 3 uses a physics engine, which is a series first. Dark Moon had some objects with physics properties, but those objects were few and far between. In Luigi's Mansion 3, almost everything can be interacted with in multiple ways. They can be moved around by sucking, blowing, bursting, using the suction shot, and even just by walking into them. Objects in the environment can also be broken by slamming something into them, be it an object or a ghost. Sand can be sucked up using the poltergust, but it can also be blown into larger piles that can be used to reach higher areas. Physics aren't used all that much for puzzles, but it's still fun to mess around with the objects in the environment. As for the collectibles in Luigi's Mansion 3, there are quite a few, namely gold, gems, and booze. Gold is the currency of Luigi's Mansion 3, and it comes in 4 forms, each with its own value. Coins are worth 1 gold, bills are worth 5, bars are worth 20, and pearls are worth 100. The currency can be used to buy things from a shop, such as revival items or items that can help you find the other collectibles, but you receive a ranking after beating the game based on how much money you have at the end of the game, so even though the game throws tons of gold at you every other second, it's best to buy items only if you're sure that you need them. All 17 floors have 6 colored gems that are hidden throughout. Each floor's gems have a distinct and unique shape, and they're usually hidden quite well. Some gems may require you to turn to a previous floor later on, but most can be collected on the first go. There's not really a reward for collecting every gem other than a cosmetic item, but they're still fun to hunt down anyways. Each floor has 1 boo, but they don't show up until after you've cleared a floor and won't begin appearing until a bit of the way into the game. They'll hide in objects, and Luigi will react when they are close by, either by vibrating your controller or shaking violently when walking around. If you find where the boo is hiding, you will need to find it with the dark light to stun it, and then slam it repeatedly to whittle down its health. All the boos have 20 health, and the only reward for catching all of them is a cosmetic item. Compared to the boos in Dark Moon, the boos in Luigi's Mansion 3 really feel like an afterthought, as they're not nearly as fun to find. In Dark Moon, the boos would hide themselves by making objects in the environment disappear, but that's also how you knew that there was a boo in the area. In Luigi's Mansion 3, however, you can tell when a boo is in the area because the music changes, and also Luigi will start reacting. So not only are they not nearly as fun to find, but they're also not nearly as fun to fight. Going back to the game's aesthetics, the quality of the animations is absolutely astounding. It is Disney-level animation, to the point where it feels like I'm watching a Disney movie every time a cutscene plays. Even the game itself, not just the cutscenes, the game itself has that Disney-level animation. It's so expressive and bouncy and fun to watch, and that doesn't just go for Luigi, that goes for all the characters. The ghosts, the boss ghosts, Mario, Peach, the Toads, Egad, Polterpup, all of them. The game is not only fun to play, but it's incredibly fun to watch. The last thing I want to touch on before wrapping up this video is the game's music. In the past games, the music was good, but it was also repetitive. The original Luigi's Mansion is notorious for having the same theme throughout the entire game, even if it is pretty good. And Dark Moon had a different theme than the original, but that theme was the same in every area, with the only difference being the different instruments. Luigi's Mansion 3 takes that habit of having the same theme over and over and chucks it out the window. Every area has its own unique music, with the exception of B1, 1F, and 2F West, as they share the same music because it's the prologue of the game. And there are plenty of areas that have multiple pieces of music that play in different parts of the area. And, obviously, the music is amazing. Each piece reflects the theme of the area extremely well, and although they don't really have the creepy vibe of the original's music, they do a much better job of making each area even more memorable. There isn't really one thing that makes Luigi's Mansion 3 an incredible game. Rather, it's every aspect of the game blending together that creates such an incredible experience that's an absolute joy to play through. The Last Resort's numerous and varied floors are fleshed out by the visuals, set pieces, attention to detail, and music in a way that none of the floors blend together or are forgettable, but they still feel anchored within the walls of the Last Resort. The game encourages exploration of the floors through the promise of secrets and collectibles, and the exploration itself is fun because the environments are so interesting and engaging. The combat feels a lot more involved than just simply focusing on one enemy, because the player can actively affect the environment and enemies around them. The few puzzles that there are varied and interesting, and they aren't particularly challenging, but they aren't too easy either, and rarely is the same idea explored twice. The game never feels overwhelming because the puzzle sections, combat sections, and exploration sections are well paced and well balanced, and this goes for within the floors as well as the floors themselves. The characters are brought to life with near Disney level animation, which gives the game a bit of a lightheartedness that balances out the game's generally creepy tone. The characters themselves are unique and memorable in their designs and personalities, and this goes for both returning and new characters. And of course, Luigi steals the show every opportunity he gets. Luigi's Mansion 3 is an incredibly fun experience. The feeling of pure joy I experience when I play it is one that many other games have failed to capture. The only games that I can recall where I felt similarly are Super Mario Galaxy and Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. However, those feelings of pure joy were not nearly as strong as those that I felt while playing Luigi's Mansion 3. This feeling can be accredited to the game's more lighthearted tone overall. That being said, I know there are some people that are disappointed that the series is becoming more tongue-in-cheek and goofy, when the original Luigi's Mansion was creepy and suspenseful. While this disappointment is valid, I think the tonal shift is an appropriate and much-needed change. After all, Luigi has become a much more fleshed-out character since his first solo role, and his character is now more goofy than cowardly. Luigi's Mansion 3 is a game that I highly recommend playing. The game is fantastic in almost every way, with only a few shortcomings that don't really affect the overall enjoyment of the game. After the mixed reception of Dark Moon, I'm glad Next Level Games were given a second chance, and I appreciate them taking full advantage of the opportunity. Luigi's Mansion 3 is a game full of passion and creativity, and it completely deserves to be crowned as one of 2019's greatest games.
Bye, everybody.